these comments off because I'm not really on here to read comments. All right. All right. So basically, I want to talk about winning your soul. So basically, like I already touched on the other video, if you haven't watched the other video, make sure you go do that. So basically, like I was telling you, I was led by the Holy Spirit to start just documenting everything that, is being revealed to me right now because I'm experiencing um, a lot of, I don't know if I'm gonna call it warfare. I don't know if that's necessarily the word because like I'm not engaged in warfare. Like I don't even consider it warfare because I know I already have the victory over this. But like I do consider myself like someone who's been like targeted, and like maybe one day I'll go back into the backstory on like how that came to be. But just like most people, you deal with the wrong people, narcissists, and all the wrong people, and then so you find yourself on this crossroads of life, trying to win back your sanity, i.e., like your soul, which is like your mind, will, and your emotions. So basically, it's not really that complicated. So, like, after you dealt with a narcissist and after you've dealt with some level of like trauma and abuse, like you fragmented in your mind. It's like you've either disassociated, you probably been medicated, you probably have been fragmented, and you scattered all over the place. And so i.e., now you have to like reclaim those parts of you that where they got destroyed with while going through like the dark night of the soul. And basically that ties into gang stalking too, because all of this stuff, like I keep telling you, is spiritual. So if the enemy can use a person or a situation to kind of like break you or get you to lean more so into darkness, then that's what the enemy is going to do. So yeah, the enemy, the people who are responsible for all of this, they love when you're dealing with people who are toxic and narcissistic and vampiric and those type of ways. So you have to be careful about that because believe it or not, most people are really just out for what they can get. Not saying that there aren't good people out in the world, but you just gotta understand like just the way the world is. Like Drake say, nice for what? Like you have to wake up and realize like this world isn't like all sugar plums and cotton fields and like no, this planet, this reality is a very is a jungle, and you have to know how to navigate that jungle. And believe it or not, most people, your average person doesn't really know how um things work. And I'm one of those average people, like I'm a regular schmegular degular guy. So for me, being 32 years old, kind of like finally seeing like, yeah, man, we're living in a matrix, we're living in a simulated reality where nothing is by coincidence. And like a lot of things I'm seeing are highly controlled, and down to a science, and a lot of things I still don't understand. And so I have no choice but to like rely on my faith. But what is clear to me is that one, I'm not in control, and two, I'm realizing that it is spiritual. Like you're not wrestling against the flesh and the blood. You're not wrestling against people. Like you're wrestling against things that have like taken up agency, like within your mind and your thoughts and things like that. So you know for me, it's kind of It's kind of difficult because I'm like learning as I go. Also, while trying to help people, but while being in like a difficult spot in my life. But all is good, man. It's not a really big deal. So, yeah. So basically, like this video, I'm saying like winning back your soul is really like how do you resurface after you've been going through like a dark night, or how do you resurface after you've experienced something like gang stalking and being targeted and you know really feeling like you know your whole life is under surveillance, and how do you recover from you know feeling attacked, like like where everything, like where the rug is basically pulled from under you, you know what I'm saying? Like it's like a dark night of the soul, but as far as like 10 times worse. And so I just think I like don't ever think I have all the answers figured out. Like all of this is theory. And that's the crazy part about it is like this is a rabbit hole. I think like I'm realizing like I don't care how many views or subscribers a person has on the internet, social media. Nobody knows what the absolute answer is when it comes to this stuff. It's all hypothetical and it's all theory. So don't ever get me twisted to think I know exactly what I'm talking about, because I don't. I'm only figuring I'm only telling you what I think. Okay? So let's put a disclaimer. I'm not acting like I'm a guru on um any of this. Narcissism, Christianity, consciousness, awareness. Like I'm not a guru in any of this. I'm just, trying to help somebody who isn't quite where I am in this evolution, okay, of becoming more self-aware, should I say, because like I recently saw a video where there was a young lady who committed suicide because she was experiencing the whole gang stalking thing. And like that's the worst feeling for me, because I've been there. Like I've been there. Like there were days where I really wanted to end it all because I didn't know, one, what was going on, and two, I didn't feel like there was a solution. And fast forward months or years later, like I'm still experiencing the same thing, but it has gotten much easier. So, it's kind of sad that anybody would take their life because of, the warfare that they're experiencing. But I do know like it does get intense, and some people just can't handle it. But it's kind of crazy. I don't want, like, I would hope that my intention is that someone will find my messages to understand, like, one, like, you're not alone. And two, it's like, it gets better. And like, it's mental. So don't ever give up, and don't ever think that it's the end and think that, you're doomed and there's no hope in this situation. Because once you understand like what's going on, it's kind of like, okay, I see what's going on here. And then you could kind of like relax a little bit and understand like it's all a game. It's pretty much a game, not necessarily for your soul, but your energy is valuable. So you have to understand like you have value, and once you learn how to master that and not allow people, places, things, or you know thought forms, or even negativity drain your energy and your life force, then that is the true secret to really making it to heaven. Like we get caught up in like religion and Christianity this and Israelite that, but basically like Jesus, the it just basically came to make you aware of how valuable you are to source, to God, and to how to remain, in that knowing and in that in God's will. And that's all about protecting you. So when you deal with kind of like narcissists who want to come in and replace God in your life and try to control you and micromanage you, that's when you start to fall down to like the low vibrations of like gang stalking. And that's how this stuff manifests, because somewhere along the lines you gave up your power to an energy source that was trying to rob you of your power, and somehow you gave up permission to that. So that's one thing you have to realize, is that okay, somewhere along the way I gave my power away. That's how you get involved with these narcissists. And that was just a mental decision because of some type of pain or trauma that you that you allowed to linger, and you tried to medicate with that narcissist. And let me tell you, narcissists, which are just like vampires, man, like they're connected, like all this stuff is connected. They feed off the energy. Like they smell when you have like wounds, and you're leaking energy. Like they smell it a mile away. Like these are predators. These people are trained for this, okay? Like it's deep. So the point is, I'm saying, is like, how do you win back your soul from dealing um in low vibration energies? Or how do you reclaim your vitality? How do you reclaim your life force? How do you reclaim your passion? Because we could go round and round and round and round and round about the semantics of the warfare and the gang stalking, and the war in the second heaven, blah blah blah. Like, how it's, because everything is connected. You gotta understand that. So that's the rabbit hole. Like, i.e., I'm gonna tell you right now, the rabbit hole is everything's connected, whatever. But what I'm saying is, how do you reclaim you? But first of all, you have to know who you are. And that goes back to the fragmentation and the disassociation. Like, man, once you really start to do your shadow work, it's kind of like you go back down memory lane. And it's kind of like, man, you realize like you never knew you, because if you like me, if you like most people who are alive, like you realize like, man, you've been so fragmented for so long. It's like you don't even realize who you are anymore. Like if you was to put a mirror up to your face, you wouldn't even know who you are. And that's an important truth most people need to realize. Is like, you don't even know who you are. Like if someone asks you who you are, you couldn't tell me. And that's like, most people will say, well, my name is Sherry, and I'm a school teacher, and I teach second grade, and I'm a wife, and I'm a mom, and I have this and I have that. That's not who you are. you know, those are just titles we've given ourselves, while we are temporarily living in this reality. And, it's kind of like, if I ask you again, like who you are, you wouldn't know how to answer that question. Most people would not know how to answer that question. And that's what I mean is, how do you reclaim your soul? How do you reclaim your essence? How do you reclaim who you truly are? When most of us don't even know who we are, and we don't even know where to begin to find out who we are. Not to say that we aren't those things, not to say, our careers don't matter or make us who we are. Not to say, being a mom or a dad isn't a part of our identity, but when I say who you are, I don't mean, you know, another false title that we've just given ourselves just because of that's what someone says we are. You know what I mean? So, how do we reclaim our soul after we've had traumatic experiences to where we have lost parts of ourselves? How do we reclaim that? What does that look like? How do we begin to take off the mask? How do we begin to pull back the layers and actually recover? Like, what does that look like? And I think most people most people are so afraid of that level of self-reflection, because that level of self-reflection requires honesty. And it's like, and I know, once you deal with people who are narcissistic, like, you have like trust issues and you have like intimacy issues. It's certain things like you just don't talk about, so people don't want to talk about it. So it's like it requires a level of honesty that most people just don't have. Like, most people just don't have that vulnerability in today's society. If you like look at like a lot of the doctrine of like of the Illuminati, like, you see like they are always putting up like the be quiet symbol, like the finger over the mouth, and like, shh, don't say anything. Why do you think that is? Because the truth will set you free. So the enemy knows, is like, if the enemy can keep you from actually speaking your truth, that's why a lot of us have blocked throat chakras. You got to understand, it's all connected. Remember, I keep saying it's all connected. So if you have a blocked throat chakra, and then you have the world that tells you, don't tell the truth, don't speak up, don't speak out, don't speak on the abuse, don't speak on your abuser, don't say certain things, then how do you heal? So that lets you know, like, most people, even people that seem like they're doing okay in society, most people are not okay, because we are not living authentically and genuinely in our higher selves, which allows us to speak openly and freely, even regarding our pain and our trauma. For me, when I was dealing with the narcissist, a lot of I was getting attacked a lot of times because people were making me feel guilty for speaking out. People were making me feel as though, speaking against the narcissist was some type of betrayal to them. And I was a snitch, and I was a rat, and and I deserve to be punished, just like growing up in a toxic family where you're like the scapegoat and you're the black sheep. You're told to always be quiet, and you're told to, don't say this and don't say that, and you're wrong, and this and this and that. So it's kind of like, um how do we reclaim a piece of us that has been buried, or that we have buried, because one, it makes other people uncomfortable, and two, people have told us that we're not allowed to access those parts of us. So what do we do? How do we move forward? What does that healing look like? What does that progression look like in today's time? I'm curious to know because it looks different for different people. I'm curious. Do you think that healing is even possible? Do you think that people are able to reclaim pieces of themselves and live authentically and boldly in their identity? Or are we always going to compromise who we are for the sake of others? Are we always going to compromise for the world and being for others? Is this just going to be a cycle that humanity continues on and on and on? Or are we going to have the ability to transcend, brokenness and compromise and people pleasing and victim mentality? How are we going to, as a species, reclaim our most intimate parts, which are our own mind and our will and our emotions? When are we going to think for ourselves? When are we going to break out of the programming which has been set for us to think a certain way, feel a certain way, and be a certain way? When are we going to outgrow the expectations and what the world has placed upon us and told us this is who we are? Because it's all connected, as I said, and these are vital tools that we need in order to ascend up out of this low dense frequency. you know we have to adjust, and we have to grow, and we have to reclaim who we truly are, which we are vessels of consciousness. We are merely only the observer observing the consciousness. So we're not even consciousness. We're actually observing the consciousness within the body state, which is a form of awareness. But I don't want to confuse people on consciousness and awareness. But when it breaks down to it, really, when I ask you who you are, you're nothing but awareness. You're not even consciousness. You're awareness, which means you're only simply here to be. You're not really here to do. Like, you're a human being. That is a state of being. That is a state of completion. You're already complete. Oh man, I'm getting deep now. You see what I'm saying? We live in a world where the disassociation is telling you you're something, but you're actually not that thing, because you already are complete and you're already being, because you're not even in your consciousness, your awareness. You're already operating from a place of wholeness once you realize that you're already complete. But somewhere along the line, we've been broken into fragmentations and disassociations just for the sake of fitting into this world, which brings me back to the compromise. So how long are we going to compromise what we truly are, and take on these false titles, which are actually lowering our vibration? The reason why we can't ascend is because we keep reducing ourselves to mere titles of absolute irrelevancy. So you wonder why humanity is experiencing the stress and the chaos. Like, you hear all those sirens going off in the background. Like, do you understand? Do you understand the level of density that siren that you're hearing? That is simply a counteractive measure of trying to police your consciousness. When your mind hears a siren, you're reacting. And that's basically what your conscious is doing on this reality. You're constantly reacting to stimulation, to stimulus that is not even real. That siren is not even real. It's not even a real stimulus. It means nothing. But however, when the police turns on his siren, he expects you to respect his siren and to act accordingly, whether it's to move out of the way, pull over, stop, pause, be afraid. So again, I ask you, how do we reclaim our soul and our being and our pure awareness in a world that is simply meant to fragmentate, fragment, or destroy or reduce your awareness, be it through a person, a narcissist, a controlling parent, a controlling boss, trauma, pain, poverty, homelessness, sickness, disease, strife. How do we counteract in reclaiming our divinity or our i.e. state of awareness and being and pureness in a world that is anchoring you into a low density of doing slavery, oppression? And not to say I don't want to doom scroll here, and I don't want to get people into like a doomsday vibration, but what I'm saying is that these things are real, and we're all a part of it, and we've all played our part. But there's a time for everything. And now it's the time for humanity to ascend. It's time for humanity to awaken. It's time for humanity to grow. It's time for humanity to become free. I think we've played religion long enough. I think we've distracted ourselves long enough. I think we've entertained ourselves with sports and Beyonce and Michael Jackson and all these celebrities long enough. I think we've medicated long enough. I think we've overdosed long enough. I think we've, you know, been codependent on each other long enough. I think I think we have had sex long enough. I tried to drink it away. I tried to put one in the air. I tried to sex it away. Thought that would make me feel better. But it's like cranes in the sky. Sometimes I don't want to feel those dark clouds. It's like cranes in the sky. Sometimes I don't want to feel those dark clouds. You know? So I think we're gonna walk this journey together because like I said, I haven't mastered it. I'm putting this out there so that, you know, maybe for those of you that plan on following me on this journey and walking with me, and hopefully and pray that I stay consistent with making these videos despite, you know, the engagement, because like I said, the Holy Spirit led me to put these videos out here, you know, and just, you know, give you guys some thoughts to bounce off of, because, you know, the times are weird, and I think it's important that, you know, we connect with people who are going through the same struggles we're going through. And I think that's going to be very important in moving forward. So, I want to be obedient to God and obedient to the Holy Spirit, and just, give you guys something to kind of think about and brainstorm on, because um, I know there are many chosen ones out there. I know there's a lot of y'all that are experiencing a lot of the same warfare that I'm experiencing. So, it's just brain food for thought. I'm not a professional. I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm not a preacher. I'm not a guru. I'm not an expert by no means. But this is something I'm very interested in, because for me, I've been through a lot of abuse. I've been molested. I've had addictions, and I've been in toxic relationships, and I've dealt with a lot of things. And so I'm 32 years old, and so it's like I'm trying to really, really find who I am, and really discover who it is that God wants me to be, most importantly. And it's like, I have to go back and recover the things that were stolen from me, i.e., whether it's my innocence or my light and my purity and things like that. So, I know I'm not alone in this. And so I've had my heart broken many times, and I've been rejected many times, and a lot of pain and a lot of hurt. But I'm tired of singing that sad song, and it's like it's time for a new song. So, I'm trying to connect with people who are ready to move forward, and who are ready to grow beyond their pain and their trauma, and who ready to get back to living and get back to being authentic and genuine, because it's a lot of darkness. Like, don't get me wrong, it's a lot of darkness around, and I face it every day. Like, life for me isn't perfect by no means, but you know I just can't sit around and allow the enemy to continue to make me afraid of speaking my truth. You know what I'm saying? um so yeah, so food for thought. Basically, I'm just saying, like, how do we heal fragmentation? Dan Duval, I don't know if y'all know who he is. If you don't know who he is, make sure you look him up. uh Shout out to Dan Duval. I'm really big on Christian leaders who are at the forefront right now, who are tackling issues like demonic warfare, um, second heaven warfare, um, possession, and iniquities, and who know things about legalism, because I think all that stuff is important. I think a lot of what we battle in is it's just spiritual warfare. I think it's good versus evil, the fallen, of course, Satan versus God. Like, that's just my theory. I think we're just like caught up in the middle of all of this, and it's important for us to kind of like pick a side, so we know who we fighting for. And once we pick a side, it's kind of like stay on that side, because like God says, if you lukewarm, I'll spit you out. And it's kind of like waking up to realize, it's like, hey man, I've been playing for the wrong team. So it's kind of like I need to get on the winning side. And at least for me, that's my my case. And it's basically, it's like, I owe God a big one. So, because he's great and he's merciful, and I couldn't do it without him. So, you know. So yeah, so that's basically this video. I'm like I said, it's so much I want to speak on and touch on, but I can only say so much in one video, and I don't want to make these videos too long. So that was just it for today's video. Appreciate y'all for rocking with me. There's definitely more to come. I'm gonna try to do a video every day until I can really get this flowing and get this stuff out. And Yeah, so appreciate it, y'all. Y'all have a great night. God bless y'all with much love, peace, and prosperity. And until next time, gang, see you later.